the US is going to get the same surveillable, programmable digital currency garbage that is being pushed in other countries, but is going to be, in those cases, is directly issued by the central bank. The US is going to get that same thing, but it's not going to be issued directly by the Fed. It's going to be issued by the commercial banks, the big banks, the too big to fail banks, who are going to basically issue a bunch of stable coins and back those reserves up at the Fed. That's called a synthetic CBDC. The US is going to get a synthetic CBDC, and people are going to cheer and say, US stands for freedom. We don't have a CBDC. But you do, because it's still surveillable and still programmable. Instead of Jerome Powell programming your digital dollar, it's Jamie Dimon. Is that a victory? I don't think so.
Wait a minute, everyone. Get ready for the ultimate crypto investing website, the Bitcoin Cella. It's your golden ticket to an exclusive insiders club. Expert predictions, on-chain data, and breaking news, all for you. Imagine all crypto insights landing in your inbox daily, like having your own expert team. Don't miss this VIP opportunity. Click the link and secure your spot. Join now and ride the crypto roller coaster with the Bitcoin Cella. Whitney Webb, an investigative journalist and expert on digital currencies. She will reveal the shocking truth about the US dollar and how it is being transformed into a surveillance tool by the big banks. Whitney Webb says the US is not like other countries that are creating digital money controlled by their central banks. The US is doing something different. It is letting the big banks create their own digital money and back it up with the Fed. This is called a synthetic CBDC. The US is getting a synthetic CBDC, and people think this is good because they think the US is free. They think they don't have a CBDC, but they do because this digital money can still spy on them and control them. Instead of the Fed boss programming your digital dollar, it's the big bank boss. Is that better? She doesn't think so. So get ready as we dive into the conversation with Whitney Webb.
Yeah, so you may remember from the FTX scandal last year that there was like this weird bank in rural Washington that's like basically like broom closet size, like one branch bank that had like less than, significantly less than like $10 million in deposits before it was bought by this entity called FBH Corp, which was basically the current chief compliance officer of Binance, Noah Perlman, plus Jean Chalopin, the chairman of Deltec, which is known for being a big bank for FTX, but is also one of the biggest banks for Tether, USDT, right? And these guys, and there were a couple other people there. There's another Deltec guy and another guy I can't quite remember, but they're the ones that bought Farmington from this other guy named Archie Chan. And I wrote about Archie Chan specifically in his history last year. But basically, Farmington got, after it was bought by Chalopin and these guys, started to undergo this transition from being this rural community bank, one of the smallest banks in the country, to trying to become part of the Federal Reserve System, changing their name to Moonstone, trying to become the bank of the future, and being involved specifically in like the cryptocurrency space and also like in marijuana, legal marijuana, and like just a huge transformation was underway there. And Noah Perlman, who I mentioned earlier, was like on the board of Moonstone. Also, Chalopin, obviously very involved, as was his son, Javier Chalopin, who was chief digital officer of Moonstone. And pretty much around the same time, like very small, like a couple days difference, I think, Alameda Research poured like 11.5 million into this bank, which was like at the time twice what they were, the whole bank was worth. And then they swell in like less than a year from 10 million in deposits to like 84 million. And like 74 million of that was just from 4 accounts. And 50 million of that was one account tied to Sam Bankman-Fried that was titled FTX Digital Markets. So you have Sean Jalopine, Deltec, you have SBF and FTX, and Deltec and FTX are obviously connected. And they're basically using this, trying to use this tiny bank for something. And based on just what is documentable, there's no way this bank should have been approved by the Fed. It should never have been made part of the Fed system. And the Federal Reserve System refuses to explain still how they approved it and why. And there's also the same sort of like no comment, nothing to see here, even though, like, yes, local reporter, you bring up good points. They were irrelevant to us at the time or something from like Washington financial regulators. And if you want more details on that, you can look in the two pieces I've written about it. But there's definitely something very weird there. Like there was somebody in the Fed system that got this approved when it should not have been approved, and even high people up at the Fed are covering that up. That's essentially what's happening here.
Whitney Webb tells us a weird story about a small bank in Washington. It was bought by some people who work with cryptocurrencies like FTX and Tether. They changed the name of the bank to Moonstone and wanted to join the Federal Reserve System, which is the central bank of the U.S. They got a lot of money from a company called Alameda, which is owned by the founder of FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried. The bank grew very fast, but it was very shady and risky. This bank should not have been allowed to join the Fed system. It did not meet the rules. But someone in the Fed helped them get the approval. Someone high up in the Fed was hiding something. This is very fishy. Why did they do this? Because they wanted to create a synthetic CBDC, which is a digital dollar that can spy on you and control you. The Fed boss or the big bank boss can program this digital dollar to do whatever they want. They can track your spending, limit your access, or even delete your money. This is bad for your privacy and freedom. This is also bad for the U.S. economy because it can cause inflation, instability, and dependence on the big banks. The cryptocurrency industry is not safe either. It faces many problems, such as regulation, hacking, volatility, and competition. There are many scams and frauds in this space. There are also many conflicts and rivalries between different cryptocurrencies and platforms. You can lose your money or your data very easily.
FTX collapses and all this scrutiny obviously gets placed on this tiny bank, even from mainstream media and also from congressmen. Like it was obviously like something was going on there and it was very obvious to see. And then the Fed has since like issued like enforcement actions against Farmington and like forced it to close down. And so it doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. But they had big plans for it before FTX unraveled. And that's essentially what this piece is about. It's about the partnership they made right before all of the FTX started to go to crap and just like explode, you know, and is basically around this company called Fluent Finance that had partnered with Moonstone, and Fluent Finance was specifically looking to, through partnering with Moonstone, spur mass adoption of a U.S. dollar peg stablecoin called US Plus. That was basically marketing itself without saying it by name, but naming Tether basically like a trustworthy Tether. So why are, Deltec and FTX very tied up with Tether, including well before FTX went under? Just like a very known relationship there. Why are they using this other entity that they're hiding behind essentially to get involved with this new dollar peg stablecoin that's trustworthy and like regulatory compliant? And there's been a lot of speculation for a long time that Tether's not going to make the cut when regulations come into force because of like, where are their reserves and all this stuff. Like there's always been a lot of controversy around like Tether and reserves and like other, aspects of how Tether functions, and there's like some trust issues for them. And so, it seems like they were trying to like get, involved with this new stablecoin. And there's a lot of intrigue and a lot of still, unanswered questions, but I figured like looking closely at Fluent Finance and like what they've done in the years since all of this essentially unraveled for FTX and Moonstone, like maybe we can find out where Moonstone had originally planned to go. And I think it's pretty fair to see that, they were angling to be essentially, the de facto CBDC of the United States. Because as, and we can get into this in a little bit, but why this really matters, why this piece really matters is because it explains very well, I think, why the U.S. is not going to get a CBDC, but it is going to get a CBDC. What do I mean by that? The U.S. is going to get the same surveillable, programmable digital currency garbage that is being pushed in other countries, but is going to be, in those cases, is directly issued by the central bank. The US is going to get that same thing, but it's not going to be issued directly by the Fed. It's going to be issued by the commercial banks, the big banks, the too big to fail banks, who are going to basically issue a bunch of stable coins and back those reserves up at the Fed. That's called a synthetic CBDC. The US is going to get a synthetic CBDC, and people are going to cheer and say, US stands for freedom. We don't have a CBDC. But you do, because it's still surveillable and still programmable. Instead of Jerome Powell programming your digital dollar, it's Jamie Dimon. Is that a victory? I don't think so.
Whitney Webb wants to tell us what happened to the small bank after FTX collapsed. The bank was called Moonstone, and it had a secret partner called Fluent Finance. They wanted to create a new kind of digital dollar that would replace Tether, which is a very popular but very shady cryptocurrency. They thought Tether would not survive the new regulations that were coming soon. They wanted to make their digital dollar more trustworthy and compliant. But their plan failed. The Fed found out what they were doing and shut them down. The bank and the partner disappeared. But she did some research and she found out what they really wanted to do. They wanted to create a synthetic CBDC, which is a digital dollar that is not issued by the Fed, but by the big banks. They wanted to control the money supply and the people's money. This is very important and scary, because the US is not going to have a real CBDC like other countries. The US is going to have a fake CBDC that is still spying on you and manipulating you. The big banks are going to be the ones who decide how your money works. They're going to have more power and influence than the Fed. They're going to say that this is freedom, but it is not. It is a trap. And don't forget to subscribe to Bitcoin Cella. You will get the most important news in your inbox every day and for free. Don't miss this opportunity. If you like the video, hit that like button and subscribe for more daily updates. Remember, knowledge is power, and we're here to help you on your money journey. Until next time, happy investing.